Okay, I'm just going to say something really quickly, and this is not going to be like a long show or anything like that. This is just me really ranting real quickly because I'm very upset. The mainstream media has virtually been silent about this Jim Jordan scandal. And if you don't know what's going on with Jim Jordan, here's a clip explaining it.
A pair of former wrestlers from Ohio State University say Congressman Jim Jordan was in fact aware of sexual misconduct allegations against a team doctor. This comes shortly after Ohio State athletes across 14 sports reported alleged sexual misconduct against the late Richard Strauss. Representative Jordan's spokesperson said in a statement that he never heard about any abuse and never had any abuse reported to him when he was an assistant wrestling coach at Ohio State. However, former wrestlers Mike DiSabato and Dunyasha Yates, who wrestled at the university in the 90s, say Jordan was aware Strauss was groping male wrestlers at the time. Strauss died in 2005.
Okay, so Jim Jordan has been accused basically of turning a blind eye to sexual abuse of these college students, boys, and this young men, I shall say. And there has been allegations that there were actually some kids that were showering in the facilities that were 14 years old to 17 years old, which means that they were underage. Okay, Jim Jordan is accused of turning a blind eye and not reporting this. The same way they accused Joe Paterno is essentially what they're accusing Jim Jordan of. But the mainstream media, for some reason, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, cannot find the courage to cover Jim Jordan. Watch their coverage. As a matter of fact, today I decided I was done watching it because I'm tired of the mainstream media being afraid. See, they pretend like MSNBC, CNN sometimes are worse than Fox News. Because Fox News, you actually know where they stand, and you know that they're never going to cover something like this. But for MSNBC, ABC, NBC, for all of them to not cover this, CNN, all of them to just not really try to cover this story and try to bury this story shows you real cowardice and shows you that they're not trying to protect democracy. They don't believe in democratic principles. Because if you did, then you would be trying to bring this story out about one of the biggest abusers of democratic principles. The fact that they're not saying anything, and you know what's even further annoying? NBC legitimately puts out a story on Twitter, okay? Writes a story on Twitter, talks about the fourth accuser that comes out against Jim Jordan. Not one MSNBC commentator said anything about that story. NBC put the story out. NBC didn't even have the courage. MSNBC didn't even have the courage to report on a story from its parent corporation. They didn't even have the courage. But if that had been a Democrat, they would be out there telling you about how scandalous it is and should the person resign. So this is definitely a coordinated effort to drop the ball on the Jim Jordan story. That's exactly what this is. None of them want to cover this story because they are afraid to cover this story. That's the truth. And nobody should even dispute this any further. Go and see if the mainstream media is going to cover this story. They're way too afraid to cover the story. And it makes you wonder, why exactly are you afraid? Because maybe it's part of the problem is that they've been feeding the American public so much bullshit for so long by playing both sides, having Sarah Huckabee Sanders on, always trying to get access to Trump, letting Jim Jordan on their network like MSNBC was doing. Maybe it's because networks like MSNBC and CNN are constantly trying to play this both sides of the argument thing instead of just playing to the truth. That might be the problem. Maybe they're too ashamed of the fact that they had an alleged child abuse enabler on their network. Maybe that's what it's about, but nevertheless, they're doing damage to the American public. So I am actually promoting that people should probably not watch MSNBC or CNN or demand that they start covering the story you're going to stop watching because they don't deserve our money. They don't deserve our money. They get our money by our viewership. And if they're going to continue to disrespect viewers and try to disrespect our intelligence and pretend as though we are not watching what they're doing and that we don't understand that they are literally creating narratives and detracting from specific narratives that could be damaging to somebody who's literally trying to obstruct the United States, who's literally committing treason against the United States, and they don't have the courage to cover it, then why would anybody watch them anymore? Seriously.